I love to make remixes. It's so refreshing and fun. You can take almost any song and flip it, chop it, rearrange it, and mix it up. You basically add your taste, touch, style, and influence to an existing piece of art. This piece of art is then morphed into something new. A remix. Okay, so I found this Espresso song by Sabrina Carpenter, and I instantly got hooked by the cool vocals. Ideas started flowing, and I imbued this song with elements that I liked. Chords, a bouncy bass line, and some deep house inspired drums. The result is pretty cool if you ask me. Anyways, I'm gonna show you how I made this remix in FL Studio. This is gonna be a little bit of a longer video, but I'm gonna include some timestamps in the description down below so you can easily navigate between sections in the video. Okay, enough talking, let's jump straight into the FL Studio project. Okay, so this is the FL Studio project. So before I jump into anything, I'm just gonna show you the complete project. So up here, I have some automation stuff on the master channel. The purple area here is the vocal stuff, vocal chops. Then I have some more automation stuff down here. I have the bass line here with some automation and another bass line, some bass adds. Then on the blue elements, these are the drums, some kick drum, some automation, all the other kick drum elements. Sorry, the drum elements here. More automation, and then the yellow elements are more like melodic elements. So I have a piano, chords, I have some choppy chords, synth sequence, high strength, and an ambient synth pad. And then down here, I got a little bit lazy, so I didn't like color code these into a group. But these are all my effects, textures, and risers, all that stuff. So this remix, of course, got started with the vocals, but then I imported the vocals into FL Studio. This vocal is actually not in 120 BPM, so I time stretched it. I can't remember like the exact original BPM, but I looked it up. So I found both the BPM and the key of the Espresso song. And then I went into, I have the RX10 from Isotope to do the time stretching because it has a really cool time stretching algorithm. It sounds really realistic to me. So I did that. And then we have like a vocal that's time stretched to fit the tempo of the project because I wanted to have it to 120 BPM to bring it into a more deep house area. So basically what I did is that I dragged in the full vocal. I didn't have like anything with the arrangement. I just dragged in the full vocal. And then I just started to find some chords that fitted the vibe that I was going for. So if we go down here to the piano. So these are the chords that I found. And they basically just repeat. Over here, there's just an extra note added up here. I'm no music theory genius, so I have to rely on some tools to help me with that. So I'm using the plugin called Scalar 2, and I touch upon this plugin in a lot of my videos, but basically this just has a huge library of chords that you can use, and you can find the different scales, modes, and then you can basically just play around with chords that sounds right. So I just found some chords and dragged it into this pattern. And found some chords that fitted the vibe together with the vocals. So I was playing the vocals, just playing in the playlist, and then I tried to find some chords that fitted the vibe together with the vocals. I never just find the chords on its own, they have to fit together with the vocals, obviously. So that's the process. I dragged these into the piano roll in FL Studio, and then I actually did some minor tweakings here. I highlighted everything, and then I hit Alt and R to put up the randomization thing in the piano roll, turned off the pattern here, because down here, if you're using the levels, you can actually, by turning up the velocity, you can see down here you get some more like random results to your velocity levels, and you can also do that to the panning and some other knobs. And what I like about this is that you get more random results to your chords and basically to all MIDI inputs down in here. And it just gives, to me, the chords a little bit more of a human feel, because the volumes are not exactly the same throughout the pattern. They change a little bit. So that's, you can see down here. So that's pretty cool. The piano is coming from Arturia. It's coming from the piano plugin from Arturia in Analog Labs 5. And I think this is just a grand piano, and it just sounded nice. But I wanted to layer this with some other things. And this is another piano plugin, the Una Corda from Native Instruments. But I'm not using like this is like in like a traditional way of using a piano. But what I've actually done is that I have turned off the main sound of the piano, and then I'm only using like the harmonics and some of the texture in the noises and texture in the plugin. So that could be like the fabric inside the piano, and it could be like some noises from the pedal on the piano, and then emulating like having an actual pianist playing. So you get some noises to layer on top of the other piano. So these are the noises from the piano layer on its own. So you get like this nice texture on top, and if we enable the other grand piano, it sounds like this. It works really well, and it's just the same chords that I've copied in the piano layer. So it just gives it a little bit more, I don't know, human feel to it. Okay, so I have the piano chords here. Then I went in and did these choppy chords here to add some bounce and some vibe. And they are also following the same chords from the piano. I've deleted some of the notes because I didn't want it to play down here. I just wanted it to have an area up here to be playing, because I had the piano to occupy this area down here, the lower range of the frequency range. And I also have a bass line, so I don't want to like clutter up my frequency range with a lot of sounds. And the power of this sound lies in the mid-range area, mid to upper range. So it's just like I like to divide up my frequency area in different instruments. So of course you have kick drum bass line in the low end, and then you can move upwards and get like piano, and then you can get like these synth stuff. It's just to make every element to have its own space in kind of a way. I don't know if that's the term, professional term, but these choppy chords are really like driving the rhythm in the drops, especially. And then I have this synth sequence here. I actually forgot to tell you, like the choppy chords, they are coming from this old Silent One plugin. And this is just a really, really great plugin for getting these more like analog influenced synth sounds. I have used this so much, and I think this is actually one of the first plugins that I bought when I started out like 10 years ago. And this is just a vibe, just really and simple layout, and it's easy to like sculpt the sound, and there's like a lot of presets out there, so it's definitely like a plugin that I would recommend to also to beginners, because you can really get more into like the sound design stuff. So yeah, that was the choppy chords. And again, I'm gonna include timestamps in the description down below, so you can navigate through the sections. And I'm just gonna try to keep talking as much about every aspect as possible, but I don't want the video to get too long. So if you want me to cover anything other, just put down like a comment in the comment field down below, and I will try to make like another video or something. Okay, so this synth sequence that we have here, it sounds like this. It's really slow to load up this plugin, yeah. So this is coming from SFXs. Again, okay, so now we talked about having like a simple layout in Silent One. To me, this is not like a simple layout. So to be honest, I have actually just used some of the presets in Massive, and I think I actually didn't tweak it that much. So I just found like this sequence that just fitted the vibe totally, and I just kept it as is. It was amazing. So it's just like a cool thing to have, and because it's like a rhythmic kind of thing, so it's just driving like. So together with the pianos and the bass line that I'm going to show you later, and all the other elements, this is just like a cool thing to layer on in the top range, and just adding cool vibes basically. Okay, then I have this other element over here. As you can see, I actually don't have that many like melodic elements, and that's basically because the vocals takes up a lot of space in the mix, and then because I didn't actually needed more stuff. So you don't just add stuff because for the sake of it. It should have like some kind of purpose in the track, obviously. Okay, so I have like this high string thing over here. It's for the build-up, and it sounds like this. A really, like, on its own, stupid sound, but this is just a string plugin playing a really high A, and then I just bounced it to audio and add some processing to it. And this is just to drive some tension in this last build-up towards drop number 3. And this is like a sound that you will hear in a lot of other house tracks. They like to use these like high strings, and I wanted to include that as well. So the last melodic element that I have here is this ambient pad down here. This is not playing the same chord progression as the piano. I think this is just an A minor held down and then adding a little bit of extra notes here and there. I actually just recorded it on my MIDI keyboard and then recorded it into FL Studio, and then I went into the piano roll and did some retweaking of the notes. But this is mainly to fill up the frequency range and add, of course, a little bit of ambience together with the other elements. So these are actually the instruments. I can try to just play the melodic parts here so you can get an idea. So of course I have some automation here. For the piano, this first one is just some volume automation, and this is mainly for drop 3, because here in drop 3 I have like a longer section of the vocal playing. So this one up here. And because this is like, it's going like in like high energy area, and this is taking up some more space, I had to just reduce the volume of the pianos a little bit because they were conflicting a little bit for space. Okay, and then I have like a low pass filter here on the piano. So this is just to slowly introduce it into the mix, into the track. I think this is a really cool track, to introduce elements into your songs. This is like a well-tested effect, just to use like a low-pass filter, like a DJ effect. It just works. Don't overcomplicate it. If it works, it works. And as you can see, I'm using it like around the track, mainly for like some build-up stuff, for some intro stuff here, and for the outro. Nothing really crazy. Then these choppy chords, I have automated the filter cutoff inside. Let me just show you inside Silent. So this knob here, the filter cutoff, is being automated. So here you can, it's going down. And then slowly opening up the filter again. And this is just to change the sound a little bit, because we're going from the drop into a verse. Then I want it to not be like smacking hard. I want it to be a little bit subtle and then slowly introduce it into the track. It's just to add a little bit of movement and make the elements feel a little bit more alive, kind of evolving, should be the word. And then you have like the synth pad here. You can also hear like that texture layered on top of the piano. It just cuts really nicely through the mix. Okay, so these are the instruments. So now we need to move into, I think I'm gonna go to the drums. Okay, so let me just take this from the top. So in the top up here, we have the kick drum. You can see the pattern here. I have some double hits here in between, just to add like an extra kind of groove. Then I have a little bit of volume automation to the kick drum. This is mainly for the verses, just to not to have like the kick drum playing at max volume. It's also a cool thing, because then you have like different versions of the kick drum. You have the loud one that you use for the drums, and then you have the a little bit quieter one for the verses. And it's also a good thing when the drop hits, it kind of hits a little bit harder because the kick is a little bit louder. Yeah, so that's why I did that. Then I have some claps down here. This is one of the claps. Then I have a clap layer here. Let me show you this one layered on top. And then I have like this clap add here. So it's adding like extra like swing groove. And you can see this is being pulled off the grid a little bit. And that's where you get like these more like swingy kind of grooves. And I love to do that, because then it gets a little bit less static, in my opinion. Okay, and then I have this closed hi-hat down here. And this one is really like not so quantized strictly to the beat. You have like these elements that are being, like these notes here that are being really pushed away from the grid. And together with that, we also have some velocity changes to the notes as well. And I think also, yeah, a little bit of panning as well. So it really moves the closed hi-hat. So you have like moving in the panning and also in volume. Try to play around with just putting off like elements like closed hi-hats, because they can really drive a cool house rhythm. Okay, then I pulled in a loop from Splice. Let me just zoom in here. And I'm not afraid of using Splice loops, and you shouldn't, but I just like to use them because they have high quality. But as you can see here, I also did some tweaking, because they were not in the same like swing groove as my closed hi-hat, so I had to tweak it a little bit. So that's why I've chopped up some elements down here. Then I've layered it with a groove loop, also from Splice. just adding a little bit of, extra groove. And it's a really cool thing to layer your drums with drum loops, splice loops, or from sample packs, because they can add that missing frequency range in the drums that you're maybe lacking. And it can also add like groove, and it can also add randomness, human factor, I don't know, like just some stuff that might be missing in a programmed drum sequence. So try to go and look for, also in Splice, there is a section called World. I think this is like African American, South American inspired sounds. And there you can find some really cool, groovy drum and percussion loops. Try to import them into your projects. You will be pleasantly surprised with the results. Okay, let's move on. I have added like a tom fill in between sections. So it sounds like this. Just a simple fill with these notes. And I think a little bit of panning as well, just from left to right. It just works. It just adds a little bit of like the expectation for the listener that something new is happening. We're going into another section. And then actually in this other section, I'm adding like a shaker loop. So this is actually 2 shaker sounds. I have these accent notes, and then I have the main shaker here. And this is really subtle in the mix, but it just adds a little bit of extra groove. It's also panning from left to right, so again adding a little bit of stereo effect to the drums. Then I have the rim shots down here. And there's this one here. When I'm making my drums, I'm tending to find elements that are like the main elements. So that could be like the kick drum, claps, snares, and the hi-hats. And then all the other elements should just support the groove of these main elements. Because if you just keep on adding, it can be a little bit busy in the frequency range, and elements will be fighting for attention, and then they can sound a little bit like cluttered. So I'm really like picky when I'm doing my drums that the elements that I introduce actually add something to the total groove of the drums. So yeah, moving on, we have some snares here. That's also why when I introduce like another element in here in this project, it's not like really loud. It's like, it's just a little bit, it's subtle, but that's because it's just layered with all the other elements. So just supporting the groove. And then I have like this perk layer here. This is like a lot of different perks. Also like a small sap in there, this one. So the idea of this like perk layer was actually to have a lot of small like Foley, percussion, wood sticks, tambourines, just really low in the mix and just panned out and then layered on top of the other groove elements, just to add like a little bit of layering to the drums. And it just worked. And then the last one is a ride loop. So this is actually my full drum loop. So it's sounding to me really like full and with the groove. Just really sick. I just love it. Down here you can see I have some automation, and this is just a low pass filter. I can actually show you the low pass filter if you want to. It's the ladder filter from Kilohertz. It's a free one. Go check it out. But as you can see here, if I just play this area here, let me show you the plugin. You can see I've automated the cutoff here. Then it's going down. This effect. it just works. It's really great for like the transitional stuff here. So you can see when it's going into a drop, I'm doing like a low pass filter. When we're going from a drop into a verse, I'm doing like some, you can say, low pass filtering to just make it a little bit like subtle, and then turn it back in. It's just a really cool effect together with the other elements. So this is the drums actually. I'm gonna show you, like in the last part of the video, I'm gonna show you like all the processing, the mixing and stuff. Right now I'm just focusing on showing you the elements and what they add in the track. So now we're actually ready to move on to the bass line. Okay, so the bass line is actually two bass sounds. So I have this main one here. And I think this is really cool. Like, I spent a lot of time tweaking these notes. So they are following the key of A minor and almost following the chords of the piano, but just doing some minor tweakings here and there, adding some notes. And you can see these are also not entirely on the grid. This is adding that shuffly vibe to the track. And if we go into the plugin, I have my faithful Silent 1 plugin. A really, really simple bass sound, but it just works. Then this bass sound is actually layered by a mid bass line. So let me just play that mid bass line. This is coming from the June 6.5 from Arturia. This plugin is really, really cool. And again, also so simple to use. And I wanted to, because that other bass line from Silent, it was lacking a little bit of like mid-range, mid-tone. So I just thought to myself, let's go hunt for some sounds in the June 6.5 plugin. And I found this, tweaked it a little bit, and then I basically cut away the low end. So if we go into the processing here, you can see I've actually cut away the low end here. Because that's the area where the other bass is playing. So if we play these two together, they sound like this. And they are getting clipped a little bit, but this is just the sound that I want. I wanted like a little bit of aggressive sound. Pretty cool sound. So this is the bass line here. Then I've actually added like another bass sound. So let me just play the solo, this one. Just this like sequence, this pattern here. I think this is from, I think I used a Serum preset for that. And it was just because it was lacking like something that could just add some interest. And I just went to search for some sounds, and then I found this, and it just works together with the other elements. So I just put it in. The bass sound is being sidechained to the kick drum, and all the other elements are like being sidechained to the kick drum. So playing it together with the kick drum, it sounds like this. So we get this nice sidechaining going on. And I have a little bit of volume automation here for the bassline. Anyways, if you want to learn how to do like how I do my side chaining in FL Studio, I'm not gonna touch upon this in this video because it's gonna be too long. You can go and check the video up here. I have done a tutorial on how I do side chaining in FL Studio, so try to go and watch that afterwards. Okay, so this is the bassline. So these automation down here is basically just to, I think this is just some side chaining. No, sorry, some low pass. Yeah. So this is the verse here. And I wanted to use the bass line in the verse, but I don't want it to be like at full power where I'm using it in the drops. So I just did some docking the volume a little bit. So a lower volume here and the low passing. So we get like going from this. So we get like this, it's more tucked in the back, and then we can just reintroduce it in the drops where it just smacks on. So that's actually the bass line. So now we're ready for the fun part, the vocals. Okay, so the vocals. This is like the main part, of course, of this remix, the vocals. So when I do remixes with vocals, I tend to just drag in the full like a cappella vocal file into the project, time stretch it, all that stuff. And then I'm trying to figure out where there are some interesting elements. Of course, trying to cut out the verses, also cut out sections that can be used for the drop, and then basically trying to sketch them out for an arrangement. So figuring out where could like a verse be going into a drop one, what could another verse be with a build-up going into another drop, and so on. That's what I do most of the times. But then I'm also like a huge fan of doing these vocal chops here. So this one here in the drop one. So these are the chops. And this is actually just me exploring, because I don't plan this. I don't listen to like the vocal and saying, okay, I need to do this. I actually do it in like a little bit of a crazy way. Let's just say that we have this full vocal here. But what I do is that I basically just go here in FL Studio. I press this menu up here. I have made a lot of videos covering this trick tip feature in FL Studio. But basically you go down to chop and you go to time-based. Sorry, you go to complex and you go to beat shuffle. And what it does is just chops up the audio into a lot of different bits. Boom. You have this. So now if I play it. And this might sound a little bit weird on its own, but what I basically do is that I do this and then I try to just play it through, listen if there is any like bits that sound pretty cool or some sequence that also sounds pretty cool. And then I drag it out and then put it into a new sequence like down here. And then I basically try to build like a phrase or melody or something that makes sense in the context of the track. And this is it's like a trial and error thing, because sometimes I don't get it in the first try. I try again, I go back and do the beat shuffling function again and just go through it. If you are willing to spend a little bit of time doing this, you can actually chop this, rearrange this in a really, really sick way, because you get your own signature to it. Instead of just using the main bits that everybody would use. At least this is my take on it. Oh, that's that me Espresso. So yeah, that's like the drop. So in drop 2, I actually added some extra pitched up versions of the chops. So take a listen. So this one, like this one right here. So this is just pitched up 12 semitones. So we get like this chipmunk kind of sound. But it was just like an extra taste kind of thing to add into drop 2, so there were like some kind of change, because this phrase here is actually the same as this one over here, but I just added those like chipmunk pitched up vocals just to get a little bit of variation to it. And together with these like other pitched up versions, I actually did these really like choppy kind of things down here. So this one, this one, and this is just me playing. It's just me playing. I just wanted to try if this worked, because it's almost acting as like a percussive element, but it's just driving a groove, and it was just pretty cool. And I'm like smiling right now because I'm still like I'm still such a huge fan of it. So basically, just go grab that vocal, chop it up, pitch it up, try to make these percussive things that almost act like as a drum element in some kind of way. Stutter thing. This is actually where you can really introduce your own taste into these remixes. So in here, like the verse, I have kept these like stabby, choppy things down here. So if I play it, might give a fuck, are on vacation. So you can hear like this one. Again, as I mentioned before, it's just to add like that flavor and also that rhythmic kind of element to it. Because if I play everything, so that just works. Again, it's a rhythmic element. Okay, if we go to, I have these elements right here. These are actually just me taking a really short snippet of the vocal and then flooding it with reverb and bouncing it out to audio, so we get this. So these ambience kind of stabs that can also be reversed and used as sweeps. Like this one. So this one is being reversed. And then we get like these more like smooth introductions into sections. So take a listen to this. If I remove this, it just adds that extra layer of smoothness. So I'm using different versions of these like reverb things here. So yeah, that's also just a cool effect to use for the vocals. Then in the intro, I have this vocal chop thing here. And I think this part here is actually the last bit of the vocal, and I just wanted to rearrange the vocals. So this is actually the first part of the remix. But I think this is cool because it's introducing the element that I'm actually also using in the last part of the track, which is this one here. So I'm using this one here. So this section right here is like the last one, and this section is the one that I'm using here, like not so obvious. And I think this is cool because then it just evolves into the verse and the build-up. That's just a cool thing. So yeah, let me just show you like that last bit. So for drop 3 over here, instead of like repeating the thing with the chopped vocals, it just had like in the vocals, the original track, it just had this part here, which was pretty cool. And I wanted to use that. So I just thought to myself, what can I do to change it a little bit? And then I was thinking Starter House is cool. So I just added like a trench gate effect. So let me just show it to you. This effect here from kilohertz, and it's just doing like those like choppy kind of things.
Now he's thinking about me every night. Oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. Say you can't sleep, baby. I know that's that mean espresso. Move it up, down, left, right. Oh.
Yeah, pretty cool actually. And just adding like that trance gate, it just transformed the vocals and also like the other processing as well. But it was just a way to do something else.
Now he's thinking about me every night. Oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. Say you can't sleep. Thinking about me every night. Oh, is it that sweet? I guess so.
Just a really cool vocal. It's almost like it's just going like one notch up in like energy in the last part here. And then we go into the outro, and this part is repeating, but then I turned down the volume and I also added like some low pass filter on it, so it just chucks back. Just chuck back in the mix. I have added like a delay plugin on vocal chops and all that stuff here, and it was a little bit too wild for this part here, so this is without it. Can you hear the difference? Like it doesn't have like those long reverb feedback, delay tails, and because this is like a full phrase, like a vocal phrase, it was just mudding up the words and all that stuff in the vocal phrase. So I just wanted to turn down the mix of this delay effect. So this is what you see here, and then in the bottom I have a low pass filter again, as I had the same one that I've used on the drums and the piano. Just to introduce the vocals more like subtle, smooth in the intro. And then here I'm just using it like as a like transitional effect here. And this just works together with the other elements if you listen. Pretty cool effect. So that's actually the vocals. So I'm gonna show you the SFX and textures, and then we're gonna jump into the processing and a little bit of mixing and arrangement. So yeah, next, textures. So down here, I'm just gonna do this really quickly because again, the video is gonna be really long, and this is also just small taste things. I see this as the sprinkles on top of the cake. Like these are like the 5% details to the track. So what I have here, I have a lot of stuff, and the most part is like crashes and sweeps. I have this one, the snare uplifter here. And then I have like these small like laser fills. This one. And I have this one. The classic UK garage effect. And this one. With a little bit of delay on it. And some chimes. Basically this stuff is just layering for the other elements and just adding a little bit of human touch to it. I also love to put like these vinyl crackling sounds and also like texture loops, field recordings with people in a pool. This just adds a human touch, a human element into the tracks, because when I'm producing in the box in a computer, things can be a little bit like too digital, too static, and then I just like to go and record some sounds outside and then import those into my projects because to me it just gives it a little bit more like personal character, again that human touch. And I don't want to do that much promotion on this channel, but those like field recordings here are actually from one of my sample packs from Mallorca, and you can go and check those in. I put a link in the description down below. It's just pretty cool to add this. It just gives it a little bit of texture. You can also just go grab your phone and record some stuff outside and import that into your project. Okay. And then lately I'm going more into like sound design stuff in my videos, and I like to tell stories with sounds. So in the intro I've actually added these like footsteps right here. And this just sounds like a person walking in and then flipping some papers. And I just thought it was pretty cool. And then I actually also found this cool effect here. It's actually like champagne being poured into a glass, but I thought, okay, this song is called Espresso. It has to do with something with coffee. Could we introduce like an element that sounds like coffee being poured into? So this is in the build-ups to try to pay attention to this element right here. If we play everything. So again, these small effects just adds character to the track. So I definitely encourage you to, when you have produced everything else, found all the other elements, all the main elements, go and search for some cool effects, textures on splice and sample packs, and put them in. And don't just neglect them. Don't just settle for like a crash and that's it, and sweep. Try to find some elements that you can layer with your drums, with your percussion and all the other stuff, and use them as like stuff that can do transitional stuff, smooth transitions, like this like simple transition. See if it plays. Yep. Something like that. If you listen here, from going from the drop 1 into the verse. It just makes going from one section to another just a little bit smoother, in my opinion. So that's why I use all of these different SFXs and textures. So I think like that pretty much covers it. Leave a comment in the comment field down below if you want me to talk more about using SFX and textures inside your songs and projects. I would love to do that because I love SFX and textures myself. Okay, so yeah, I think we are ready to jump into the arrangement and then processing and mixing. So I hope you're still with me. I know it's a long video, but I just want to cover as much stuff as possible so you can get something from this video. Okay, let's move on to the next section. Okay, the arrangement. So arrangement is usually something that's a little bit difficult because when I produce, I'm stuck in a loop. I'm usually just using like 8 bars, 16 bars, finding all the sounds. And when I have sit down in like 2 hours, I just get bored of the idea, the project basically. And I think like recently, in the last couple of years, I've actually prioritized creating an arrangement pretty quick in the session, because then I can see the idea as a concept instead of just that loop, because then sometimes I can't see like where should this loop go. So I need to have set myself some boundaries, create like a playground, like a limitation. So basically for this remix, it's difficult to like say this should always be like this with arrangements, because for me it's a matter of like when you play it and when you get into the flow, you usually the song almost dictates the way it's going, kind of. So you know where you should have an intro, you know where you should have like a verse, a build-up, a drop, and so on. For example, in the original track, in the original vocals, the verse, like this area here, is actually what's the only thing. I had like an intro here for the vocals, and then this is the element that I have. So this one.
Think about me, switch it up, say that's that me, Espresso.
And then the next part of this area is actually the beginning over here.
I can't relate to desperation.
And I just thought, okay, this
Say you can't sleep.
is a cool way to build tension. So
Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me, Espresso.
So I thought, okay, here there should be a drop. It just feels right that the drop should be here. So I sketched out, made some room for a drop. This was also when I created these like vocal chops here. So it just made sense to have this here. And because this is not like a minimal house, progressive house track where the drops can be really, really long and evolving, this is more like an EDM, dance, garage, like a combination of a lot of stuff. But I don't want my drops to be too long because it just doesn't fit the vibe of this track. So I could quickly just decide on, okay, I just need this area of a drop. And then I need to go into a verse and change it. And then the verse here is actually just the vocals.
I can't relate.
So this is the original, and then it goes back into this like.
Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me, Espresso. Move it up, down.
So the chorus for like the original track, and then I thought, okay, we're just gonna like repeat the same approach as we did over here.
Move it up, down.
Also to keep it a little bit consistent to the listener, so we don't change too much of stuff. So we know, okay, when she sings this part,
Move it up, down, left, right, oh, switch it up, lightning.
we're ready to go into the drop. And it's also helping the listener a little bit because we're using all those like effects down here, the snare roll.
Move it up, down, left, right, oh, switch it up, lightning to low. Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me, Espresso.
So it's just a matter of using elements that tells the listener, okay, something is happening right now. We're going into another section. And that could be going into a drop, but I could also be going from a drop into something else. Then I found then the original vocal had like this verse here.
I'm working late, cause I'm a singer.
And I think like it almost acts as like, is it called a bridge in musical terms? And I thought, okay, we need to use this area here. And
come and get this pollen. Too bad your ex don't do it for you. Walked in.
And this one was pretty cool. And then because this one is changing,
Yes, I know I'm not to do it for you. Yes, that morning coffee booty for you.
I thought to myself, okay, instead of just playing here, it's just playing, I could just keep it going. But because I want to tell the listener something is happening and we're ready to go into the build-up and towards drop number 3, I actually pull out the drums, also like these choppy chords. So I'm introducing that high string. Just that effect of just pulling out stuff, it does something to the listener. They pay attention to, oh, something is happening. The kick drum is just being pulled away. Why is it being pulled away? And also that like high string down here, it just helps with adding that extra tension. And one other thing that I love about like arrangement stuff is that before drops, I also like to pull out some stuff just before when everything hits. So pulling out the piano, also pulling out some of the effects, because it's just like that, just tiny second of not almost silence, but where everything is just being pulled away. It just does something. I can't explain what it does, but it just does something. Okay, so you can see up here I have these different markers here to explain like the different areas. The outro, of course, is just this. So here I'm introducing like that ambient synth. I'm pulling away some of the choppy chords and the synth sequence here. Also some of the drum elements, the kick drum and the bass line, because I want to like imagine that we are driving in like a Ferrari and we're just driving really fast. That's the drop. Now we need to like slow down and going into the pit lane, and that's the outro. So basically just speeding down. That's what I want to do. So going from this. So basically hitting the brakes a little bit. That's why I'm also using automation to add a low pass filter on the vocals. I'm also adding a low pass filter on the drums, and also on the master channel I'm using a volume plugin just to turn down the volume slowly. Again, just to break down things, and then we know as a listener, okay, this song is going to an end. When I'm doing arrangement, we need to tell like a story. We need to have different sections. That's also why if we just have the kick drum and the bass line playing throughout the whole arrangement without changing anything, that's where the track can sound a little bit static, maybe even boring. And then it's our job to try to either add some interesting elements or take away some interesting elements in some areas and reintroduce them. And that's my methodology of doing arrangements. There is no like one size fits all approach in terms of arrangements, but if you want to get better, try to import one of your favorite songs into your DAW, listen to the song, and then figure out, okay, where did they put an intro, a verse, a build-up, a drop, how long are they, and then put in markers. And then you have like a sketched out like arrangement with markers where you can just put in your own stuff. And that's also an approach that I have used a lot to become better at doing arrangements. And it's like a continuous process of just trying out stuff. But if I should boil it down, don't be afraid to use automations as well when you're doing arrangements, because they can sculpt your stuff. It can make transitions sound more smooth. It can evolve your sounds over time, change your sounds over time, and add that interest stuff to your tracks. So basically, you should try to just play around with stuff and test out different ideas. Make that arrangement, that sketch first, and then try to fill it out afterwards. I'm going like a little bit above and beyond right now, but that's because this is like a really important thing when we're producing. It's like the arrangement. It's like it's the next step towards actually finishing our ideas. And it's also the same thing with remixes. I have made some remixes where I've just pulled in the vocal, did all of the different elements, the bass line, the chords, the drums, but because I was not focused on the arrangement, I actually got a little bit bored of the remix. And it's such a pain because then it's really difficult to move forward and convince yourself that it's a good idea. Okay, it was a little bit of a rambling about like arrangement stuff, but I hope it made sense. Again, you're always welcome to add some comments in the comment field down below. If you have any questions, you can also write to me, DM me, send an email. I would love to help out. This is just how I do it, and it works for me. And I'm also trying to become better at it always, and trying to explore other cool arrangement tips and tricks. So, but this is just me. So you can see clearly here there is like a structure with the drops where everything is playing. We have the intro where a little bit less stuff is playing. Then we're going into build-up where there are like the effects, that's the snare builds, automation, going into the drops. And then we are pulling away some stuff into the verses, turning down the volume of the bass line and the kick drum, putting a low pass filter on the bass line. And then we have like this ambient synth pad that we introduce. Yes, and then we can go into the next section, which is the build up here. And the drop. number 2, and then we go back into another verse.
I'm working late, 'cause I'm a singer. Oh, it looks so cute. Wrapped around my finger.
Pretty cool. And then we go to the other build up here. And then we go into the outro. Okay, so again, I don't want to make this video too long, but I have another video covering how I do arrangements, and you can also go and watch that up here. In the last part of this video, I'm gonna include the full track of the remix. Just listen to it and try to figure out where the different elements are, like the intro and the build up and all that stuff, and use that in your own productions. I hope this is useful to you. Okay, I need to finish this video, so we're gonna move on to the mixing and the processing, and then we're gonna wrap up this video. Okay, so we have to be quick because the battery on my camera is running low. So I'm just gonna quickly show you some of the processing and the mixing that I'm using for this project. So again, kick drum, and I have a sidechain trigger. This is for like sidechaining to all my other elements. I'm sending a signal here. Then I have my kick drum, adding a little bit of extra top end to the kick drum for the mid bass, which is the one from the June 6.5. Just again, I showed you before, removing the low end and removing a little bit of the top end. For the bass line here, I've added a little bit of excitement to get some, let me just take it here, play the bass line here. Just a little bit of distortion to the top end. And then you can see the EQ curve. We're rolling away the high end and then adding a little bit of boost here. And then I'm using a limiter just because I want to push the bass a little bit. Then I have these bass adds, and this is just removing the low end here. Let me just show you. Also a little bit of top end. And that's because I don't want it to conflict with the main bass. Okay, all of these fruity limiters down here are for sidechaining. Again, go and watch that video that I mentioned before with the sidechaining. And then all of these, like the kick drum and basses, are being routed into a low end bus. I like to use buses to group my different elements, because then I can adjust the volume for all those elements and also add some extra processing. So what I've added on this low end bus is actually just rolling away some of the really super lows, because I just want to have like a little bit of a tighter low end. Okay, let's move on to the vocals, which are maybe the more important ones. This is the main vocal, which is this one over here. I'm working a little bit fast because my camera is almost dying.
Think about me every night, oh, is it that sweet? I guess so.
Yes, this one is just, I have added soothe just to remove a little bit of the resonance.
Think about me every night, oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's
This stuff,
espresso.
just to clean up the vocals a little bit. And neutron, just to remove the low end to make room for my bass. Okay, and then we have the chops, which are the cool ones. There is happening a lot of stuff here. Okay, there is going like soothe 2, removing resonance. I'm using the fruity EQ to make a telephone kind of effect. This is pretty cool. Then the transgate that I showed you before, adding like that. It's driving some really cool rhythm and groove. Then I have the decapitator, adding some distortion. Then the ladder filter. This is just used for automation to add some low pass. Then Soothe 2 here again. I think this is... There were some extra like resonant stuff that was conflicting a little bit. Then I have the delay 3. This is like the main part of the processing of these vocals. It's super cool. It's a really, really cool plugin. And it's just adding like that space and the rhythm with the feedbacks, and yeah, just pretty cool. And then Neutron 3, just to add a little bit of excitement to the top end here. Just to make it a little bit brighter. And yeah, that's actually it for the vocal chops. These are also being routed into Vocal Bus, and this is mainly just because I could control the volume level a little bit better. Okay, cool. So for like the, let me just show you like this. For the instruments, I have actually not added any processing because the sounds were good as is, so I don't want to do that much stuff to them. I'm using a little bit of EQing just to remove low end. And on the instrument bus, I'm using Soothe 2 just to remove any like resonant peaks. And Neutron 3 just to remove low end, make room for the bass. And that's actually it. So, and then of course all of the side chaining. But if the sound doesn't need any treatment, you don't need to add stuff just for the sake of it. It took me a long time to like finally learn this, that you don't need to add a compressor, distortion, all that stuff on every sound. It's not necessary all the time. Cool. Then we have like a reverb synth here, 2 reverb synths, because I'm trying to make my sounds more feel like in one room. So I'm using like the RC48 from Native Instruments. So I'm basically just sending my vocals and my instruments to this reverb bus. And then I have another one which is like a smaller reverb with a smaller decay. These are for my drums. So I'm trying to get everything into like some rooms so everything sounds more like playing together, kind of. It just works and it's pretty cool. For the drums, it's the same thing with the instruments. Nothing pretty interesting. Just I think like on this top loop I just added a transient shaper because I wanted it to be a little bit less sustained and have more attack. So I think it's this loop here. So turning this one up. It's like super subtle, but just something that I added. On the right loop is just a shaper box with some panning going from left to right. Let me just see if I can play this to you. If I turn it off. Just adding that interest with this going from left to right. And on this groove loop, it's just removing the low end. So nothing really crazy. Then everything is being routed into a drum bus. Here I'm adding a little bit of extra stuff. A transient shaper, just to make it a little bit less sustained. Let me just play all of the drums here. So taking this one off, you can hear like the rides. They were a little bit sustained. I just wanted them to be a little bit just more tight kind of feeling. The ladder filter is also just for automation. Soothe 2, just to remove this stuff here, basically. Then I'm using a passive EQ from Native Instruments just to boost the upper range of the sound with a high shelf. Just to make it cut through the mix a little bit more. Then I'm using Ozone 9 and Imager just to spread out in the stereo field. So you can see here, this area up here is being boosted a little bit in the stereo. So separating it from left to right. And it's just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then a soft limiter just to catch any like peak transients. This stuff here. And it also gives the sound a little bit more of a squashed sound, and I like that in this track. Then here I have all of my different effects, and nothing crazy, basically EQ, and then being routed into an SFX bus with another EQ. And this is just to control all of these different SFX and texture loops to make sure that they don't have anything like unwanted low end in it, and then I can control the volume. So that's basically like my mixing process. So my camera is dying. I'm gonna include the full track right now so you can take a listen, and that's it. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Enjoy. Okay, that's it for this breakdown of this Sabrina Carpenter remix. I really hope you learned a thing or two. If you made it this far, I would love to hear what you think about this video. Share your thoughts in the comment sections down below. And don't forget that you can browse some of my sample packs in my web shop. The link is also in the description down below. If you like remix tutorials, I think you should go and watch the video up here next. Okay, I hope to see you in the next video, mate. Take care, peace.